We can anticipate Apple TV approving a second season of the Jason Momoa-starring show shortly, given that the finale of the first season of Chief of War doesn't feature many of the events that are meant to occur prior to the unification of the 4 islands of Hawaii. We learned in the first season that Ka'iana plays a big role in the prophecy. Additionally, Ku may be implying that Ka'iana is the feathered cape from the prophecy by laying his feather on her cape. It has been about more than simply Ka'iana's quest for meaning and a home from the start. His quest for the prophesied king has also been a part of it. Ka'iana and Kamehameha's relationship hasn't always been easy, and as Chief of War is based on history, things will only get more problematic in the second season. The short-lived friendship between Ka'iana and Kamehameha, however, has had and will continue to have a healing impact on the warring islands of Hawaii. Despite their differences, they have the same objectives. In addition to defending their homes from various dangers, they wish to prevent the islands from battling one another and impeding their mutual development and prosperity. Thus, Ka'iana's victory over Ki'ua represents a significant advancement for Kamehameha. He is currently Hawaii's only legitimate king. Since Captain Metcalf's attack on the outer settlement of Kohala, the first season hasn't really returned to the subplot involving him. However, I believe we can safely assume that he won't be moving. In order to protect their homeland from the avaricious Europeans, Ka'iana and Kamehameha will need to unify their political views if a second season of Chief of War is produced. Additionally, they will be occupied protecting Hawaii against Kahekili. The insane king is still actively pursuing his perverse interpretation of the prophecy. The army of Maui is powerful. Above everything else, they are brutal. When Kahekili attacks Hawaii, Ka'iana and Kamehameha will have to use the red-mouthed weapons once more. But what if he also succeeds in obtaining weapons for his army? At the conclusion of Chief of War, Kahekili is in a hallucinogenic state. He appears to have coerced Lima into complying with his demands, and he currently serves the Mauian king. Although Kahekili is not overjoyed to learn about Apanui's defeat in Kau, he gets excited when he hears the name Ka'iana mentioned. He still has several unresolved issues with his former Chief of War. He will also pick out Ka'iana and hold him accountable for leaving his troops twice as he gets ready to launch an attack on Hawaii. 3082 The mystical eruption of the volcanoes benefited Ki'ua in the conflict between Kau and Kohala at the conclusion of the penultimate episode of Chief of War. Not only Ki'ua believed it to be the blessing of Pele, the goddess of fire. Formerly too cautious to support Ki'ua, certain Hawaiian regions are now afraid of Pele's fury. The chief of Hilo now bows down to Ki'ua to offer his troops and help in his conflict with Kamehameha. He has shifted his position. Hilo's chief, who was once adamantly opposed to fighting Kamehameha, is now eager to assist Ki'ua in making amends for the damage that the previous king, Kalani'opiu, did to him. Ki'ua, however, is not renowned for his kindness. Ki'ua is much more empowered by Maui's Apanui and the goddess favor, and his only goal is to hurt anybody who has ever opposed him. Ki'ua is therefore not satisfied with the chief's gift of the Holy Club, which contains the spiritual power of his ancestry and God. The insane chief of Kau will not accept just one tooth from the chief of Hilo, he demands that the chief donate his own teeth to the fire goddess. Ki'ua's request cannot be denied by the Hilo chief. Either his teeth or the bones he would rather keep more of. The fire goddess roars affirmingly at his fangs. There was no better moment for Kamehameha to cast aside his reservations about Ka'iana. Even though Kamehameha isn't solely to blame, this is as good a time as any to choose the right fighter to command his army. Ka'iana was fleeing his previous position as head of war for Kahekili when we first encountered him. Since then, he has advanced significantly. He has wished that the gods would advise him on which ruler to support. And Kamehameha was in the center of it all. Ka'iana is honored to receive the command of the army of the prophesied king as well as a necklace made of sacred ivory teeth. He will command men as the chief of war once more. He is fighting for a king who is the complete opposite of Kahekili this time, though. Kamehameha has no doubts about his ability to guide his troops to victory. He laments the lives that will be lost in the conflict, though. Having Kahumanu by his side is a blessing. Her viewpoint serves as a roadmap for him to return to the political and social reality. He gave her an official position in his council since she deserved the distinction. In order to convey that his choice is final, Kamehameha chooses not to even respond to the mutter of displeasure among the men in his court. However, the bond between Ka'iana and Kamehameha is complex. And it could be exactly what her father was afraid of. It didn't take him long to forgive his brother when Namek couldn't resist doing the right thing and telling Ka'iana that she loved Kupuohi. Ka'iana is aware that Namek would only ever entertain the idea of wanting Kupuohi if Ka'iana were dead. They all believed it to be the fact. In any case, now is not the time to harbor resentment toward an ally. Ka'iana is also concerned about Pele's lava. He believes that the gods are not on his side in this conflict. As usual, Kamehameha's voice is the only one of faith that has any effect on Ka'iana. Ka'iana no longer needs the gods to speak to him, she just needs to hold his hand and assure him that the red-mouthed weapons will win the war. Ka'iana is not the only one who feels unafraid of what they are about to encounter. It's also been a while since Tony has experienced terror. Tragically, they have developed a tolerance. They've witnessed death far too frequently. And fighters are not scared of a recognized enemy. For Ka'iana, it's a personal battle. He is battling for Nahi, his brother who died. He has also remembered that there are other individuals who are grieving for him and who are much more impacted by his passing. Hik has suffered more than anyone else in Nahi's passing. This time, though, she wants to do more than just pray. She wishes to pay tribute to Nahi by practicing what he had just begun teaching her. Alongside Kupuohi, Kamehameha, and the army of women fighting for the Prophesied King, she hopes to participate in the conflict. Because Kamehameha shared his uncle's faith, he was granted the war god. Since then, he has worshipped Ku despite questioning his deservingness of such a devotion. The king who is meant to bring Hawai'i together has never spoken to Ku. Even so, before marching his army into the Black Desert, Kamehameha prays for the blessings of the war deity. Before blessing Kamehameha as the future king who will fulfill the prophecy, it seems as though Ku was waiting for his warrior to arrive. Ku uses a single feather that flies from his mahiole and settles on Kamehameha's chief of war's cape to communicate with Ka'iana. The war god of Kohala has spoken. The goddess of fire prepares for an intense fight with her roar as Kohala's army confronts Ka'iana and Apanui in the Black Desert. Before taking up arms, Hawaiian chiefs of war in the 18th century apparently had a severe roast-off. Apanui and Ka'iana are verbally attacking each other, and nothing is beyond them. Sitting through it is enjoyable. However, if you enjoy gore, few shows do it as well as the fight between Kohala, Kau, and Maui in the chief of war climax. Ka'iana and Apanui were not prepared for the amount of harm inflicted by Kamehameha's army's red-mouthed weaponry. However, there is an abundance of spears, knives, and hand-to-hand fighting. The combined might of Ka'iana, Kamehameha's army's men and women, and, surprise, Kamehameha outweighs Ka'iana and Apanui's army. Kamehameha takes full advantage of his opportunity to be a deserving steward of the war god when he descends to the battlefield. Apanui is a beast in every way, as I hinted to in my previous piece. After Ka'iana killed Nahi, he pushed himself on Hik. Additionally, he has cornered her once more on the battlefield. Hik is too delicate for Apanui, even in her most aggressive moments. She is fortunate that Kupuohi's pleas for her sister were heard by Kamehameha. Kamehameha shoots Apanui in the leg and leaves him on the ground for Hik before he can do any serious harm. Kamehameha was relieved that the blast just rendered Ka'iana unconscious. But Moku can't find it too consoling to watch Kamehameha jump into Ka'iana's arms. Kamehameha hasn't seen them, I believe. But after the celebrations are over, Ka'iana and Kamehameha will need to confront their emotions. Instead of cheering for their king, those that made it do so for Ka'iana. It seems sense that they are happy because they didn't think Ka'iana would make it. However, when he declares Kamehameha to be his king, Ka'iana guides them to a more fitting chant. With this victory, Kamehameha is much closer to achieving his anticipated objectives. However, history does not recall a happy ending for Ka'iana and Kamehameha. It's possible that the right people have prevailed in this conflict. However, Hawai'i faces peril in a variety of ways. Regarding Hawai'i, Kahekili hasn't changed his mind. Additionally, I believe he may have purposefully hurt Cupule. When he torments his beloved and advisor, Lima, in front of him while he desperately pleads with his insane father to stop, Kahekili is clearly trying to torment him. This time, Kahekili does not murder Lima. However, by doing this when Cupule is seriously hurt and recuperating, he has only served to remind his son that he still has complete control over his realm.